What is going on, Macro Perspective peeps? Oh man, Marcos and I are looking forward to this episode. First off, I do want to shout out Sean from State. State is a Australian-based supplement company that has connected us with our esteemed guest, Dr. Damien Taylor, today. I'm really looking forward to this conversation because first off, we do want to shout out State because they are now planning to really showcase out in America, and we have a bit of a collaboration with them. So I'm really looking forward to this. But today, my goodness, the guest we have today, Dr. Damien Taylor, PhD, first and foremost, in leadership. That's right, in leadership. Y'all didn't even know that. We want to talk about this today because I think leadership is this thing that could be a bit of a nebulous term, but what does it actually mean in your day-to-day, especially in high-performance situations from military to corporate to sports? And today, Dr. Damien Taylor is a specialist in that and has a background actually learning more about women's leadership and how to retain and engage people in the highest performing fields, whether it be in sports or in the CEO C-suite. And I think today we want to look at this because leadership, when you think about it, is up and down the chain. You have to lead up the chain, you have to lead down the chain, you have to know how to be a leader and how to execute. And big companies make that happen, small businesses make that happen. So I think this conversation today is going to be super amazing. I think we're going to learn a thing or two, so make sure your notebooks are out. But Dr. Damien Taylor, thank you so much for being on the pod today, and I appreciate you being on.
It's an honor and fantastic to meet you. Thank you very much for the opportunity. It's wonderful, and shout out to Sean and Sam at State. Fantastic people and great organisation and products. Great to be here. I'm looking forward to a good conversation and leadership. It's my wheelhouse. It's going to be good to take it in lots of different directions.
Yeah, we're excited. Funny story just for the audience here. In scheduling this, I was the one who flubbed the initial one with Dr. Taylor here because he mentioned Saturday, but it was Saturday his time because we are not in the same neck of the woods in terms of time zones here. And he's like, yeah, he said Saturday. And I was like, oh shit, it's my son's birthday. We have a party. I effed up. And then he said, no, it meant Friday for you. And then it was just whole ordeals.
But the time difference is a problem, isn't it? Yeah.
And I'm usually so good with it too, though. That's the thing. It's like I usually pride myself in being like, I know this person's in this time zone. And I'll like Google it and I'm like, hashing away at it. And I knew that, but then I don't know, for whatever reason, that was not on my game that day.
Yeah, it happens. Yeah. No, it's Saturday morning here. It's 7:30 and you're Friday at 2:30 in the afternoon. So it's easy to flub those things. I have to work all over the world. So it's, I've done it before. People do it to me and go, oh my goodness. So it's not a problem. We're here now, which is fantastic.
Yeah. And so, I mean, let me just address the animal in the room that is you and the physique, because I feel like a lot of people are definitely listening to this. I don't know how many people actually take the time to always watch it, but I mean, you are definitely a specimen, and I know that you've done a lot of natural bodybuilding. So obviously that's been something that's been super impactful in your life. Like what got you started in that avenue to do like a natural kind of competitions like that?
It's interesting. I've actually been working out in the gyms for 37 years, back when I'm 55 now. So it's as an 18-year-old going into the gym and even before that at friends, the garages, the older brothers have the real simple weights lying around. So I always fascinated it. One of our sports in particular, Australian rules football, some of your audience may or may not be familiar with it. It's that crazy game that we play with no pads and 36 players on the field of all different shapes and sizes. And I'm not a tall person and wasn't that big at the time. So I really relied on getting some strength for myself and putting some extra size on. So initially it was to put on some size to be competitive in the sport. But as that grew, it really became a place of peace and zen for me as well, where I could really switch off from the world and concentrate on my mind and body. And it's really an essential part of my day. Now, get up at crazy 3 o'clock in the morning to fit it in, but get a workout in when no one else is there, which is really important because it gives me the opportunity to switch off. And to answer your question, how I got into the natural bodybuilding, I'd finished playing my sport and coaching in that respect. Now I'm a competitive person, and someone suggested I had the toolkit to look at competing in a mature age. For bodybuilding, it's a very disciplined sport, particularly with your nutrition and your sleep. Working out's, for me, the easy part. It's all the rest. It's a 24-hour sport. And so I gave it a go and fortunately was pretty successful. I won a state championship in my first encounter and then ended up competing over in America in the WNBF and won a world championship over there in Boston. So, yeah, it's It's a beautiful look for me. It's also an art form, bodybuilding. It's the human body's a beautiful thing, an amazing thing, and learning how it functions, how it works, every single muscle, and how to get the best out of that with the exercises. And as you get older, you don't get stronger, but you have to get smarter, of course, with how you're going to do it and still be able to lift well, but lift safely and do it for life. So,
Yeah.
long-winded answer for you, but
No. That's so. Are you a push pull legs kind of guy? Are you a body part split kind of guy? The inquiring minds will wonder here.
oh, we could get into the details if you want. Yeah, it's not the old bro push pull legs splits. I'm very body part specifics. It'll be something on the Monday. It's the Universal Chest Day, but I don't do chest and triceps. I do chest and biceps. So it'll be things like that. The next will be back and triceps, and then I'll do a leg day specifically because they're a hard day. Then a shoulders. Then I do an antagonist session, which is chest and back. I don't know if you've done them before. They're very, very challenging. And then Sunday's just an easy cardio and a rest on the weights. So 6 days a week, still pushing weights. But it really, as you get older, it's actually essential. There's so much research behind it on the benefits of weight-bearing exercise. And a lot of people just let it go, but we really need to be working out for life.
Yeah. And I'm assuming that obviously too, that type of split is conducive to the leadership position that you kind of manage with people, right? Like it's obviously essential to probably get your brain firing on all wavelengths to allow yourself to work with high performing individuals. And then obviously, again, like as health and wellness advocates ourselves over here, right? And especially with fitness, like we, I think that's kind of like the golden nugget and the golden goose everyone's always chasing is figuring out like how to incorporate that and also be a high performer. So obviously you're not just simply speaking to these people in that manner, you're walking the walk as well, which again, I think is really helpful as we dive deeper into like the leadership aspect of what's going on. Cause obviously you're a leadership of your own body, right? Like you're in leadership of your own body. And sometimes that's like the hardest discipline to get people to commit to is themselves. Like you can probably pour into your business all you want, but then your health will usually, anecdotally, I find that a lot of people will usually let that be the place they let slip up a little bit. So, I wanted to lead with that so people kind of get that perspective of like, hey, this guy is obviously putting a lot of effort and time. And like you just said, it's a 24-hour sport that you have to be worried about your sleep and, the performing and recovering and doing all that. And I'm sure that particular thing translates over to then how you speak to people, correct?
Absolutely. It's really point well made. I think when you're starting businesses or you're a high performing leader and you're putting a lot of effort, a lot of time into things, what people let slip, first of all, is their own health and well-being. So I haven't got time to go to the gym. I haven't got time for my exercise. But actually, that is the biggest mistake you can make because you're not giving yourself that gift of looking after yourself mentally and physically to start with. And you're right, it's difficult to come in and get advice from people who don't look like they are doing what they're telling you or offering you to say. So if you're personal training are high performing and you're not looking the part and not walking the walk, as you say, I think it's very important. So I like to aesthetically, yes, we like to look good, but it's really actually doing those things mentally and physically for yourself every day, and they are a gift. They're a beautiful gift that you give to yourself and be grateful for the opportunity to be able to do it. And I do say that every morning. I'm grateful for the opportunity to get in the
100%.
gym and look after myself. And that starts your day with, if people love dopamine hits, and that's the problem with social media all the time and scrolling through, you want the best dopamine hit you can ever give, go to the gym, do some exercise and walk out.
I agree. And I think it's also indicative of like kind of transitioning it from leading yourself, but leading others, right? When you can come from a place of experience and wisdom as opposed to teaching, being a teacher. I feel like a teacher is powerful, but they're just teaching concepts, not somebody that's actually lived it. Because the person that's lived it is going to give you so much wisdom and nuance, right? And they're going to tell you something. I have this client right now who's like a young buck, 21-year-old, loves running, and constantly for the last 4.5 years has dealt with shin splints. And for the first time, their physical therapist is saying lay off for 4 weeks. But then he's telling me, 4 weeks, I really want to get back into running and I'm like, okay. And I just straight up told him, I've been where you're at. I tore my shoulder. The next 2 weeks, I was back into the thing that I'm doing, which is wrestling at the time. And guess what happened? Tore my shoulder again. And I could tell you from wisdom, not teaching you a practical study from a scientific thing about shin splints or whatever, that you likely need more time. And I'm going to just bestow this upon you, like, please go get your rest. 4 weeks might not even be enough. Think about 8 weeks. Think about 12 weeks. And I even told them, I was like, I don't think you're even going to listen to me, like, even after I say this, but hopefully this message gets there. But what I'm trying to get to here, Dr. Taylor, is why is it that, or what is it about leadership, or what are you trying to bestow to companies, right? Or to high performers when you are trying to teach them whatever their goal is? Like, what is it that you are working with them on so that you can give them that, with that next thing that they desire?
It's a great question, and something that I've been researching, well, forever, but really deeply for the last 8 or so years, is why do leaders make a decision, and how do leaders understand themselves, and do they even understand their purpose as a leader? So often we can have workshops that are come in and they'll tell us what personality types we might be, and who we like to associate with, and what we might like doing or not. But for me, that doesn't actually get to the nuts and bolts of actually what you are as a leader. So the work I do initially with leaders is really stripping it back and challenging yourselves or whoever I'm talking to deep dive into their values, because your values are your moral and ethical radar. So as a leader, you'll get challenged every day, but you'll have at times a visceral response to things that you don't particularly like, whatever that may be. And I start questioning and drawing them out of where they come from. And that they get ingrained, believe it or not, so early from your parents that surround. So your mum and dad might get frustrated if you're late, or your room's messy. How many times do I have to tell you to clean your room up? Or, geez, we're late and it's your fault. So you get all these little values inside of you that grow through those ecosystems. So when you get to senior leadership positions and those particular values get challenged, there's two key words, react and respond. How do we react? Do we react emotionally? And then the old heart on your sleeve thing comes out. But often after that, all you're doing is spending your time apologizing for an inappropriate emotional response. You actually want to respond with the appropriate reaction. So I start looking at values to help you understand what are your key values. So what is your makeup, so you can understand when you have to hit the pause button, that wow, this is challenging me, but I've got to let it play out. It's an opinion I don't particularly like, but I've got to listen to it. Perhaps I can learn from it. And from your values form your beliefs, and they form your behaviors. So it's a whole really important ecosystem before you even get into situations. So the work I really do is understanding yourself really clearly. And then if you've got a leadership team, senior leadership team, that's really high performing, I draw out yourself, profile yourself. Then from there, we understand each other because it's interactive and you learn some really cool stuff. From there, I draw out, well, what's important for your team as you set values, your agreed values. And throughout that, you can share in the room. And you only want 3 or 4 of them to sit. You can't have 10, but they're really key. And you can draw that out to 1, maybe 2 sentences, less than 25 words. These are our key values that we're going to form our behaviours around. And then our purpose, understanding your purpose. And a question that I ask all these leaders, what's your purpose as a leader? And the room generally goes silent. And it's really understanding that front end of leadership. And that's where I do a hell of a lot of work. And it's not something that's worked on. It's usually come in, fix this, do that, restructure this. You need to be focusing on that. However, how can you do that if you don't understand yourself as a leader and understand how you get challenged and why? Because you need to understand differing opinions constantly, calmly, to make rational decisions. So it's really, really vital stuff, and things that I look at. I've interviewed 160 leaders plus so far around the world, are very high performing, of lots of different segments to deep dive into all this stuff. Fascinating.
Dang. Seamus, you have a follow-up there?
No, I'll let you follow up first.
So then you dive more specifically into a different niche as well when it comes to like your research, right? And your draw is, like you'd mentioned right before we got started, female leadership, right?
Yep.
And how they take up, what you said, 15% typically of the population.
Have high performance coaches in sports. So for instance, in Olympics, Commonwealth Games, World Championships, national sporting organisations. So all your top tier sports, NCAA, as well. There's less than 15% representation of women as high performance coaches worldwide. And in some countries, it's 6%. In the States, at the moment, it's less than 50, it's around 14%. The last Olympics, they were celebrating 13% representation, which was the highest ever that they've had of women high performance coaches, which is astounding. And for me, are we improving or are we going back? But for me, why are we even looking at gender for leadership? Surely it should be skills based. And I work with a lot of amazing female leaders. And why it fascinates me to look at them, one was the numbers, because how I got to that, just for a quick story of why that fascinated me. I was mentoring, and I still mentor a couple of women. One's in the college system over there with volleyball, another one in corporate business. But I was mentoring two women high performance coaches who wanted to get into national sporting organisations and couldn't get a role, and I could not understand it. Fantastic communicators, great people, great skills, overqualified, had master's degrees, all those sorts of things. It's why can't we look through the resumes, did all the role plays? Like, wow. So I started looking into I've got 35 years background in corporate, just for your audience, in running projects worldwide, general management, so working all over the world with senior leaders. But I've also got 40 plus years in high performance sport as well. So I've got this really broad subset of working with leaders in lots of different areas, different cultures. So with the women high performance coaches, I was doing a master's of sport business and integrity at the time, and I wanted to understand what are the numbers, what they look like, and that's where the surprise came. Going, wow, the numbers are really bad. But there's been so much research on barriers, hegemonic principles, homogeneous design, all the things that we understand, but there's been little to no research on what attracts, develops, or retains women high performance coaches. What are the CEOs doing? What are the directors of high performance coaching? What are the directors doing? And that really got me down this rabbit hole of understanding leadership and decision making. It's not, we're trying to over educate, say, women high performance coaches or women. If you look in the college system, there's more women in the college system than men. There's more women that are educated than men, but there's less in leadership. So where are the decision makers making decisions on who they're recruiting and why? And that really gets down to the understanding that it's still hegemonic, it's still homogenous, and you hear it a lot in your sports over there, and I hear it around the world. People aren't ready for a woman leader in this sport. I really find that difficult to understand. If you have a skill set that you're looking for, say you have 5 set criteria, if I challenge some leaders, I'll give you 3 or 4 resumes with no name, no gender, no cultural background, that either meet or exceed the expectations, and I want you to interview those ones. Pick who you want, get it down to 3 interviews and pick them. Could all be women who walk through the door, and sometimes it is. But when they walk through, the arms get folded straight away because it doesn't look the way they want it to look. No, it should look like this coach that I know was really good, or it should look like this, and this model doesn't fit. People won't like it, but we've got to change that narrative, and that's why I talk with these leaders all the time. It's these people that move the needle, and if you want the best leaders, women are better at reading the room. Emotional intelligence is very, very important, and it's underrated, and men are generally pretty poor at it, because vulnerability, you can show strength through vulnerability, saying, geez, I'm not sure about that, or I'm not the best at that, but we'll get so-and-so in there, rather than some men have to have that the head wobble, I call it, and the bravado and ego to say I know everything. Well, that's silly. We don't know everything. So that's why I looked at that. But we're not looking at women as leaders, and they're very strong leaders and good leaders. And it's not to even numbers. It's to get the best leaders we possibly can. And I think we're still falling well short of.
Yeah, that's it's interesting, and I wonder if it's just more of like a normalized stigma that happened with sport for so long. Like, I mean, the market and the audience that would typically be drawn to that, and even the athletes themselves, it tends to be more male dominated in terms of like where the money goes. Like, men are probably more likely to go to a sporting outing like than women would spend money on it. Like, I wonder if that has anything to do with like the analytic there of like just like how money's getting spent, and then it just, I mean, again, like I don't watch a ton of sports, I'll be honest. I mean, I do watch football, but I feel like that one is definitely underrepresented. There's definitely hardly any females typically on the coaching staff, but also it's not a sport that typically draws a lot of women because they don't play it, right? Like, so it's kind of hard to like be like, okay, you've never played it, so how do you know? And maybe that's part of like the quote unquote the stigma and the issue, right? But then I think about like basketball and the NBA and the WNBA and the fact that there's like definitely a lot more crossover to, I find that I'm like, there's a lot more female leadership that is now like, it doesn't feel unnatural, quote unquote, right? Like, I feel like I'm like more used to it in the NBA landscape. And it's like, yeah, like hell, like I feel like the women's side of things right now is far more exciting because there's more of a buzz around like the fact that they have like elevated the game to a level that, I mean, when they did the NBA 3-point shooting contest with the female and like Steph Curry, I think it was Sabrina and Steph Curry like last year, they didn't do it again this year. Like people were like, okay, cool. Like, can we be keeping up in this sport?
Yeah.
Right. And I feel like that appealed to me. It was like, that's also for me, like my background's CrossFit. So, I mean, there's a ton of women in there that have far more work capacity than men.
Unbelievable.
Insane, bro.
And,
it is,
and
isn't
some
it?
of the
Yeah.
numbers of like, dude, like if I was hitting that snatch number consistently, I would be stoked. And then meanwhile, you have some of the women out there. I'm like
Tia Claire Toomey from your neck of the woods, you know, she's killing it, you know?
Yeah. So to me, I'm like, you know, again, like that it's always felt like that's probably like the biggest draw why I liked it more, because like it was more inclusive, a more inclusive draw for everybody that you're competing with. Like y'all, yes, there's like a different like loading, but men are typically heavier. So the loading should be more appropriate based on body weight, which makes a ton of sense, right? But then to have the physical capacity as a percentage of your weight, again, like that's basically what the game you're playing now, right? And so it levels this playing field, and you know the capacity of what women have done there. To me, I'm like, oh, like I don't think of it that way as like these like kind of gender norms in a sense, like you said. Like to me, it's like I've always been doing this thing. Hell, like me and my wife go compete together, and we have to figure out how to break things up to like, okay, what are you better at? What am I better at? All right, cool. Like, what's the loading look like? Okay, what can you take more off of my plate that I suck at, that you suck at? And you have this like unique dynamic of like a team element that is cross-gendered. And that, to me, like that's why as I watch like the CrossFit games that have the teams involved with 2 men and 2 women, like you have to work collaboratively and figure out how to do things together. And there is a lot of like fantastic female coaches in the leadership position there. And then I also look at like High Rocks, like another sport where, funny enough, one of the people I trained with, she's now training a ton of people in High Rocks independent of sex, because I mean, quite frankly, she's the best in the business. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And her name is well known. Shout out Lauren Weeks. Like
and the strength you need in that, and skill and decision making quickly under pressure is incredible.
I mean, some people just have that like switch where they just like they just don't feel pain. You know what I mean? They just like, turn it on.
She definitely has that switch because it got better and better every time we saw her. I was like, geez.
I mean, she like did it pregnant faster than I can do, like legitimately like trained. You know what I mean?
And she
like,
broke like 3 records like month after month this last 3 months, apparently.
Is that right?
Yeah.
But staying calm under pressure when you're in pain and you know this is hurting and you know you've got to make a correct decision to go further. It's an unbelievable skill. And as you said, she's the best in the business. So that's a great segue into exactly what we're talking about.
Yeah. Like
decision-making under pressure, and the gender's not important. The right skilled person.
Yeah. And I think too, like you're mentioning that statistic being more Olympic based, which think about it. It is like, I think they gave a stat where it is like, I think it was more women actually competing in the last Olympics than men, like quote unquote, in terms of number of athletes, or like a slight percentage higher, right?
Absolutely. It was about 52% for women. Yeah, absolutely.
Wow.
And so then, well, why aren't women coaching other women then? In that sense, why shouldn't that one have been 50-50, right? Like that feels very odd.
It's less than, it was 13% women high performance coaches at the last Olympics, which is terrible. And in all sports around the world, professional sports included, not just Olympic, but professional sports, it's less than 15% still.
Okay.
And going back to your point on, so if you look at the NCAA, for instance, and Title IX, I'm not sure if you're familiar with Title IX. It came in 1972 for inclusion for women, for opportunity to play sport as they should, as everyone should have the opportunity. There was 93% women coaching women's sport at that time. Now it's 43% of women coaching women's sport, because what's happened, particularly with the advent of social media and money in sport, has grown incredibly. Even I think the college footballers and basketballers maybe can make money now before they go into. So even at college level, it's money and influence. So men are seeing women's teams as a vehicle for them to take the next step into the male sport. So it's pushed women out
Oh,
of coaches, and men are seeing, if I become successful at coaching this women's team at college level or at professional women's level, I will get elevated into the men's big league, wherever that.
so it's more bureaucratic BS and more.
Yeah.
It's more. It's
Yeah.
more stepping over people's. Oh my gosh, I hate that because it's like because being in the strength and conditioning world, strength and conditioning coaches first and foremost don't even, in my time when I was doing it, don't even report to someone that knows what their job is. They were like had to report to like accounting or
Yeah.
like a different person, and they had to give them numbers and data on what they did this week. And like I had to track all these metrics, which is great for performance metrics, but then I had to explain it to someone that's never touched a weight in their life.
Yeah.
And you kind of have to go like, so there is a lot of bureaucracy in that space already, right?
Yes.
And now you're going to have this added layer of, who shook more hands and kissed more babies on the forehead, as opposed to, hey, you were in the trenches and you worked hard, but
Yes.
you're overseen because you were in the back room while I was in the front. And I just seem more confident as opposed to you having the better skill. I don't like that. That's weird.
It's really interesting. In corporate, I deal with a lot of senior women leaders in there, and it never crosses my mind, or it never comes across. If you've got a meeting with the director of finance over in Singapore for X year, and you're talking to Sarah or whoever, great, whatever. It's just, you're dealing with the right people doing the right thing. But then it comes to sport, and this is what I'm trying to learn and trying to understand from these people making this decision, that we can't have a woman leader in this space. Or when they finally do employ a woman in football over here, they make a big deal that we've got the first woman doing X, coming in strength and conditioning, or the first woman. But then the media grabs onto the woman aspect rather than we've got the best leader that we could find to do this particular thing, which is enhancing our organisation. So it becomes a defence of why employ a woman into this sport rather than a celebration of we've put someone into our leadership team that's growing and enhancing us. So we're still looking at it from a very narrow lens.
Yeah.
And Marcos, you had a great point with the CrossFit's a really great example of the men and women with having to different percentages of weights that you're using, because there's obvious differences in body weight and strength. But if you look at the percentages that they're doing of body weight and the percentages you're doing, it's still looking at the similar thing. And if we look at boxing, there's different weight classes. So there's differences like that, but the pain barriers and the thresholds that I'm sure your wife gets through and other people in CrossFit, they're just unbelievable. The rock climbing you had so the mental strength to push through those things. And then I'm sure at times when you're hurting, there'll be some emotional intelligence there that, hey, you're on those encouraging words, that understanding, that sympathy, that empathy, not to say give up. It's, hey, you can get through it. You can push through. We've only got this far. And they're the really good, small, intricate things that women are often better at. So these conversations that in sport, they're not ready for women. I just don't. It doesn't sit with me.
No, yeah, and I think it's fascinating to probably like just study that. And I didn't even think about it from the NIL money making a big change as to why there would be more men taking the position that would probably historically been women led, because now there's more money being thrown at all the programs as a result of this name, image, and likeness money that gets thrown around. And it's an interesting time and landscape as it pertains to basically professional athletics for an 18-year-old to a 22-year-old, which was kind of unprecedented up until, when did it start? Like 3-ish years ago, right? Like kind of right after COVID, when it like really started to take shape. And again, to me, it does sound kind of like gimmicky, where it's like the first Hispanic man or the whatever, like, so-and-so or whatever. And it's like, God, like, I'm so over the labels of this particular type of person based on ethnicity or, their sexual preference or all that stuff. Like at the end of the day, like, give me the best person for the job, right? Like you just said, like, let's just list out all the credentials of the person, what they've done, what they've built, and then let them have a fair shake at it, because it should be a meritocracy is basically what you're saying, versus just based off of, again, sex. And I wonder too, my other question would be like, So what is the typical age of like someone that is coaching in that capacity? Is it like a man around 40 years old? So let's just say a woman is also at 40. They may also be caregivers for kids at that point too. So they have this other super unique position in their life of being a mother, which is a far more difficult position than being a father at times because of, I mean, they did a stat where it's like children are 900% more likely to misbehave when mom's around versus if dad's around, right? It's just a harder time for them. And also the emotional drain that kids have on a woman is going to be far greater. So, and when I heard that stat, I was like, I actually see it, as my kids, like with me, they're pretty chill. Yes, they're stressful to me. But then when my wife comes around, they just like, they crank it up a notch and they're just like pushing the buttons and doing that. So I wonder how much of that has a role of like, I bet you if you looked at the age and then if they're a mother, they're like, hey, like the thing that's probably most important to me is my family. And so then they're maybe shying away from some of those like leadership positions that they would maybe put their name in the hat for, because they then look at the stats, like you're saying, like it could be a deterring factor for going after that thing that they're obviously overly qualified for, because they're like, that men won't understand what it is to be a mom. We can't, right? So I wonder how much that has to play a role into that as well.
It's really well said. And all of those points are really, really important. And in some ways, they're still used as excuses or get outs for not employing women. And in fact, some make a decision, either be a mum or be a coach. And it's why we're even still having that conversation. How do we facilitate women having a family, because it's a great thing to have a family. And those ages, if you've been a professional athlete, for instance, for women coming up to 28, 30, it's really crucial. Was my window going to close over time? I know we're having families a bit later in life, but around that 30 to 40 age bracket is those windows where you start having a family. And high performance sport has been really, really poor on facilitating the opportunity for women to have a family, and then bring that scope into the role. Why aren't we facilitating that? There's daycare. Why do we, if we're professional athletes, why do we have to train at 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock in the morning when it's school drop off? There's things like you can train at 10. There's little things you can do differently that accommodate women and men. I'm a full-time single father. My children live with me, which has been a really cool conversation to have with some people when they challenged it. Now, we need them here right now. I won't name the sports because there's some that do train early mornings, for instance. Like I was talking to a couple of, let's call them old schooler coaches, very, very successful, Olympic winning coaches, and they'd say, oh, tell me about this women's stuff you do. I go, right, okay. So all of a sudden, it's they're getting this backup about this women's leader. I said, sure, what would you like to know? And it's, well, they want everything. I said, well, can you explain more? Well, they want to have a family and work. I go, well, don't we all? So do you. But I need them here now at this time. I said, that's really fascinating. So what you're saying is make a choice. Either you be here now or you haven't got a job, even though you're doing these amazing things for our athletes, our organisation, you're making money, you're making people enjoy their job, improving people, getting results. So what you're saying is your way or get out.
Yeah.
And he said, well, a few of them say, yeah, I want you. And I said, so I'm a full-time single father, and this is where I can throw the grenade in there. Full-time single dad. I need some flexibility to take my daughter to school. My son just finished school. He started working, but, I need and I want to take my daughter to the bus for school or attend some things for school. So I need some flexibility there. But I'm bringing all of this into the organisation for years and years, lots of money, lots of leadership, lots of skills, lots of things. So you're saying to me, it's your way or get out.
Yeah.
And it sort of stops them in their tracks. So to get back to your point, Marcos, it's yes, why come 40, when those careers are finishing, a lot of men, professional athletes, it's a vehicle to stay in the sport and give them a role. And that's something we've got to look at better, at getting people in sport awareness outside of sport. What are you passionate about? So you've got different skills, get uni degrees, whatever, get trade certificates of whatever it is, so you don't become institutionalized in the sport. But the men, and this is a mistake just say you've coached me in football, or you played football, you coach men's football, you're going into women's football, and this is how it works. Well, coaching women is completely different to coaching men. And men are very pragmatic, black and white a lot of the time, where women need more emotional understanding and awareness. But we're not, so that's twofold. We're not giving the flexibility for family, which we all should have. But women shouldn't be making a choice. It's a career or it's family or nothing. We've got to get better at that as an organisation, facilitating the flexibility to do that, helping. Why can't we help with some childcare and things like that, and understanding school pick-up and drop-off is really important. And then facilitate regardless of the sport, get the best leaders in if we do that, and understanding that it's not a stepping stone for men to go from I've coached this sport so they know how to play it and I'll teach women how to play it.
Yeah.
That's a really bad mindset of you want to play our sport. It's sport. It's not our sport. It's everyone's sport. We've got to understand those things so we make better decisions.
Yeah.
Yeah,
100%.
It's
Dude, Marcos, the first thing I'm like hearing in my head, first off, like what Dr. Damien Taylor is talking about is like childcare and, you know, pickup times, drop off times. Dude, I had a mom who was a single mom of 4 boys. Dr. Damien Taylor, you could kind of, you know, engage in her like kind of that same single parent thing. And, you know, she was still working out like you, dropping us off at 3 different schools, because like high school, middle school, elementary, right? Like all these different things, right? And then still making sure that we had the ability to get support, but we did have support, you know, like my aunt would help us out, my grandma would help us out, you know, friends and family. To this day, like I'm 31 and my mom was like, I was like, how did
like, she rocks in and she's doing all that, yeah.
Like how did you do it? Because I'm like, you had us like, yeah, and it's like, and it's crazy to me that like that's the conversation still, meaning like, yeah, it's either or, and you can't really get support and all this. And I feel like organizations need to, if you want to what you're talking about is like to advocate for women, to get them to come into your company and then to retain them, is like part of that benefits package probably looks like, hey, we help with child support. Hey, we help with pickup times and flexibility. Because if you look at a company, truly, like a company, is it the most important thing being here from 9 to 5, or is the most important thing getting results?
Correct. And if you're not, I've seen the transition from, you know, from the 80s in corporate through to now, and it used to be, I need to see you at your desk. Well, I've seen a lot of people at their desk not working very hard or standing around the water cooler conversations or things like that. So if you actually show people the flexibility and support and care and kindness, empathy and understanding for that's an incredible story for your mum. That's leadership in its own. And project management, you can learn a lot from how she even made that work. But you know what? If you show that support for them, they will do what they have to do, whether it's 8 o'clock at night or 9 o'clock at night. I've got to get that email done because I had those 3 hours away with the kids. They gave me this, I'll give back. And that's how any relationship works. It's got some flexibility, some agility to it. But one thing that we really want, and I'm working really deeply on this, is what do leaders want? They want trust. You know, trust me. Well, how do you build that? That's through honesty of we can say a lot, but it's honesty of your actions, honesty of your work ethic, your performance. So if you're honest around those things and give that agility, flexibility, support, care, which is recognition and validation for who we are, then that comes back in any relationship and with any employee that you've got. So those things of childcare and support, flexibility, you watch what comes back to you more than what you wanted, because you just see them as a person, understand there's things outside of life, outside of work in life.
Yeah, I feel like those things are also not even sex specific. Like to have more help with childcare for just any family would be greatly appreciated, right? Like, you know, having the flexibility to, you know that your kids are well taken care of for anybody in a leadership role or, you know, trying to strive for that. Like, I think there's a lot of, I got into an argument on social media, ironically. I don't
We'll have to talk off camera about doing that.
No. It wasn't really an argument. It was during politic time. So I'm just
you're election.
Even worse, Marcos.
I was like, man, like, I was like, all right, let me hear your side of this, please. He's like, yeah, like, I want to have, it was a guy actually. So he's like, I want to have kids one day. And it would be great if the the Dems are supposedly going to have this is what their platform they're running on. And I was like, okay, cool. I was like, you know what actually would make more sense is if they covered childcare 100%, it was 100% deductible. And he's like, well, they're going to give a bigger tax break. I was like, take it from a guy that gets $3,500 back at the end of the year. It ain't shit to go to 5K. Like, it's still, I still got to pay, you know, $10 to $15 to $20,000 to have my daughter be taken care of. And it was like this whole thing where we're like arguing about like exactly the same thing, right? Like, it's funny to me how it's great for both sides. The things that we're talking about is great for both sides, and it frees up the ability for the same thing, like the merit of the individual to help them rise. And like you just said, you shouldn't have to choose either or. You know, I think a lot of people feel as though they're going to do either or, whether it's like dad staying home or mom staying home. And historically it's been mom staying home, right? To kind of take care of like the house because, well, guess what? Back in, like you just said, the 80s or in the 60s, right? Like, they were trades. It was jobs that require like physical labor. And not that women were incapable of doing that. It was just like men were just going to go do it. You know, it was just kind of the standard, you know, when in the Industrial Revolution, when it came to that. So, you know, we have to break out of the old school type of thinking. And, you know, the longer work week, like you said, like having 40 hours in the office doesn't make sense if 20 of them are next to the water cooler just shooting the breeze. And
Exactly. Look, for all the men out there and dads and potential dads, I grew up in an era. This is a lessons learned for everyone. Particularly, I'm talking to the dads and potential dads out there that back in my day, fathers you hardly saw, and it's just what they know. But they were gone before you got up a lot of the time, and then they were home late, and dinner had all been done. They had very hard days, but they weren't emotionally present, and they didn't know how to be present a lot. I'm generalising. It's not everyone. There's, you know, amazing. But what do young boys and girls want? Particularly, they want recognition and validation from their dad. They look around, is dad there? Did you see that? Did you watch that? And being present at those school events, sporting events that might be during the week or on the weekend are so important to the children's development, the child's development. Just to know that their father's there and their mother, that they're can you see me? And that's what we've got to get a lot better at. So from my perspective, my father only knew what he knew, but I wish he was more present in my sport. Was such a big deal to me. It still is, but back when you're growing and I played a lot of sport, I wish he could have seen more. But wishing is not good. You know, I've got an 18-year-old boy now who's really good at sport, and however he goes is however he goes. But I know he turns around and the old man's there watching.
Yeah.
And I'm proud of you. Just little things like that. So when we're talking about the flexibility, it's a lot deeper than I just need to do the pickup or you're being present in your child's life, and you can never, ever get it back if you don't do it. So the impact it has is actually really profound. That's why I encourage people that I lead and then I'm around. If they say, is it okay if I do this? Yeah, of course. You know, that's important. Go be with your family. Just make sure this gets done within this time frame. And you know what? It will be. But the more you go into work as a leader, and sorry, I don't know your children's name, but so Marcos, how did your child go at that yesterday? Or how did this go yesterday? And it's starting to recognise you as a person, as a father, as a family member. Instead of this organisation saying we're a family here, I really don't like that. The organisation is not your family. Your family is your family at home and who you choose to surround. But the more I recognise you as a person, as a husband, as a father, as a family member, the more you're going to give back, because you're not just a commodity, you're someone. So it's really important for us in leadership to understand the importance of that flexibility for women and men, that you need to be present in your family's life, which gives you comfort and safety that I can be present there and I'll be present. Be where your feet are. I'm not sure if you've heard of that analogy, but I teach that a lot. Be where your feet are. So when you're at work and you can concentrate. When you're with your family, be where your feet are. Be in the moment. Be present there. Mm-hmm. And then you're doing things well and you're getting balance. Instead of, I'm at work, I wish I was there, you're not being a benefit anywhere because you're not where your feet are and where you need to be.
So speaking to that,
Marcos is like, he's like, maybe.
Well, no. Well, it's funny. Well, again, I do actually am thinking of moments of like where I'm taking calls and coaching people while I'm at my son's practice, and I'm in there. I'm in there as the flesh, but not the mind, right? And my son is probably seeking validation of dad. Like, did you see that thing? And I'm like, I was there, but I'm not paying attention
Yeah.
because, this is practice, And he's like, no, but like, I want you to see me at practice. And, my wife actually, when she's there, she's like attuned to it. So she actually goes to more of the practices because I think that he picks up on like mom's actually watching me, but dad's going to be busy with something. And then same thing, like I try to be more present at the games. And then, I mean, I have a younger daughter, and I missed my son's like highlight moments of his soccer game the other day because my daughter needed to go to the bathroom. So I stepped away. I'm talking like it was like near halftime too. So 10 minutes tops. I missed him scoring 2 goals and one shot he missed off a crossbar. I was like, of course. But you know what? The thing for me is like, I'm not surprised, bro. Like I tell him, I was like, this is what we've been working on. This is what me and dad, like you and dad have been going to the, outside and working extra for you to have those moments. It's like, to me, and I've told him this, it's like the thing that I care about most as the father in this moment is that the moments to me that I'm cherishing are helping you build the tenacity to want to get out there when no one else is watching, right? I know you want to come tell me that happened because I missed the moment, but guess what? I'm not surprised. This is what we continue to work on is like, the in-game moments and the thing that makes you feel like all the feels, right? That's a result of the hard work and the fun that we're having, just you and me, over kicking the ball into the bigger net, And this weekend too, like I have to miss my son's soccer game because I have a work obligation that is during his soccer game. And it kind of kills me because I was like, man, I was like looking forward to this game. Like I know he's going to, we got like the squads like together, they're jiving, there's cohesiveness to it. And, it's funny you mentioned though, that like kids seeking dad's approval for sport. This is also maybe part of the problem too, is like, why are the kids looking for dad to seek the approval where mom should, probably be able to fill that void too. But there's like, maybe that's just, again, there's some things that I guess nature just kind of develops instinctually where the approval of that strong male presence, and there's nothing wrong with that. But it's like, I'll be interested to see, and I'll pay more attention to this now that you brought it up, how my daughter responds to me being at her game or at her meet if she does gymnastics or whatever. And if she's like looking for me to be there, like you said, and be very present and attuned to what she's doing. Because you're right, like my dad kind of said the same thing. My dad's about to be 70. He talked about his dad always working and, he might be able to show up to a game, and I think he got the ability to do more of it when my dad was playing college baseball and football, but he didn't see any of the high school things, or, the games when he was my son's age, for example. So I think as every generation goes through it and we evolve, we get the ability to kind of think about probably the previous generation. And that's been the biggest thing for me. A lot of people will not get to experience what I got to experience as a young parent during COVID, for example. I have my son, he's 3 years old, right? Nothing really changed too much for him because we went to like a private school. So the only thing that was weird, and I think that may have delayed some things, was like people wearing masks and being able to read people's facial expressions, like the teachers. Like the kids didn't have it on, but the teachers did. So you can't really get a read on that. So that may have had some weird stuff, but I think it's resolved now. But the other thing was like, I was at home, I was working. My daughter was a baby. I got to watch, my wife was going to school. I got to watch my daughter go from, I plop her down and she would just stay there to like, oh, she's moving. I got to shut these doors. I got to gate this up to, okay,
move
cool.
everything away. Yeah.
Move everything to then like, oh, we moved into this house and she's taking her first steps. And like, oh, now I got to rethink about all these situations. And
now she has a gymnastics thing on the.
Now she has the gymnastics thing. She was like, Dad, come watch this. And, and again, same things like, Dad, like watch what I'm able to look what I can do now kind of thing. Right. Yep. And she does it to mom too. But like, the fact that like work life and trying to be, a leader in the family and then a leader, like, as I try to do things in business is this unique thing where, like you just said, like unfortunately, my office is in my house and it's open, right? Looks great, but it doesn't really, it's not as operational. I wish I could shut the door and they're like, all right, Dad's busy with work. And when Dad comes out, he's ours, right? And there's no separation to that. And that's like the one thing I wish I could remove completely is the work being at home in a sense,
Yes.
Because I think there needs to be a clear distinction of this is Dad's away, he's at work, don't bother him in a sense versus like Dad's here, but I'm not here. At least not, I'm here in the flesh, but I'm not here. My mind is not there. My mind is focusing on the other people that are helping pay the bills, and that's a very unique kind of experience too. Because, now I'm again, like, how am I going to develop my leadership skills as a father and as a business person, and learn how to delegate and do all these things where, I don't know if it's been written. And I think the psychology, because I know you have like some deeper ties into that too, like the mind and how you're interpreting things, in this new era is very, it changed so quickly. You know what I mean? It went from everybody's showing up to the office 5 days a week to like, no one wants to be in the office anymore.
Yeah.
It's a very unique thing. And again, for leadership things, like a lot of them are floating heads these days.
It is. But look, it's getting a balance. We need people back in the office because you need the face-to-face interaction. There's nothing different than when you're looking at someone in the eyes. We're doing it at the moment, but when you're physically sitting in front of people or a group, it's different.
Yeah.
You're sitting in front of a screen. You can read body language. You can read the room. You can feel the tension. You can pull and tweak, pull on threads that you need to. You can apply pressure. You can do lots of different things, but the ability to work from home is fantastic, and it can be a challenge, as you said, getting that balance with the children. One thing you can do with the children to get that balance is actually be honest with them and say, I can't be present with you in this moment. That's why Daddy's at working. So when I come out, and you just keep reinforcing it. When I'm out, you've got Dad. When I'm in here, I can't actually concentrate, and I want to give you my concentration and full attention. So you'll have to wait till I come out. And it's starting to grow that. And treating them, they want to be treated as older. You say, I'm treating you as an older person. I understand that Dad is doing this. And then when you can get your offers out, I encourage you to get out and get the balance of coming back in. It is what it is. One thing with the sport, which is really interesting, that I watch people at sport. I'm a big people watcher. I don't stand with the crowd. I stand on my own. I'm not a big one for noise, which is strange. Playing in big sports, big crowds, it's okay on the field. But I get put off by all the abuse and yelling ridiculous things. But around community sport in particular, when people are there, half the time they're spending scrolling on their phone when their child is there playing on the sport there. So they're there, but they're not present, as you said. At the training, one thing I really look at for my son, it's not kicking the goal or doing the amazing. It's the little things that you've worked on down the park of it might be a specific skill.
Yes.
And you go, you know what? When you change feet there or you change direction, we've been working on that one so much that was fantastic. And they go, oh, wow, you saw that. I go, yeah, I saw that. So that's where you're being present and being where your feet are. Same with it at work. So you've done that at work. You can say those little things that you notice. I noticed you did that. And we're all leaders and we all need everyone, whether you're out the back picking parts or whatever it might be, or you're at the front office and it's got CEO. I don't care what your title is. You need everyone together working collaboratively. But if you notice the little things that people do at work as well, like your child has done there, say, hey, you didn't need to do that, but I noticed it. I recognize it. Thank you. And you walk the floor and do that. And tell people, we've said it repetitively now, but recognizing people.
Yeah.
So walking the floor. Have you heard of tacit information? Quick story, work with and interviewed very fortunate SAS commanders, working with them, and they're in small teams, but if talk to several about tours of Afghanistan, when they've had particular missions to go on, they'll go 6 months early to integrate, and it's called gain tacit information. Walk the floor, get involved with the community, learn the little nuances, what people do. So when they really go on a mission, they know how things work. So they can just integrate. They can talk to people no matter what they're doing, and they just look like they're part of things rather than we're a specialist crew coming in. Look at us. They want to just mold and blend in and become. So gaining that tacit information at your workplace, go and talk to people and start to learn about them, learn about family, learn about this. So then you're picking up the little things. That's when you start really rocking and rolling as a team because you come together.
It's so funny you say that, Dr. Taylor. The first thought I had was one of the leaders that I had in college. So I was at a rec center, personal trainer, and we would do these yearly annual trainings. And she was probably one of the best executives on that team because she had one little story. And it's kind of going back to what you just said about learning the scope and learning the people and learning the nuances about people. And I'm very, very much always asking questions with people and learning how they tick really well. And she gave the story of, I always went down to where the custodial crew was at because, the executive team is here at their top tower, right? But the custodial queue is all the way at the end of the lawn and all the way over there. No, I made that walk every day. Said good morning, said hi, all these things. Started talking with them, little things. And those little things, it was funny. She started picking up on, oh, he loves a Diet Pepsi. He likes this snack. And started getting them that once in a while. Just gave it to him, you know?
Yeah.
It's like a few dollars investment, whatever. But because she made that walk, you know, it's a 5-10 minute walk. You know, she could be in her office all day trying to work on these big executive problems. But she knew the lay of the land so much that person went to bat for her. Anytime that there were these big custodial things that needed to happen, or she had projects that she knew that person, like, they just created this bond and trust, and she was able. And I try to do that with everybody now. I try to find the little nuances that make people tick that won't make them know. And I ask it in weird ways. So I ask it in ways that's not blatant, like, oh, what's your favorite thing? Like, I try to find things about people, and next thing you know, maybe I'm giving them a little gift that they're like, how did Seamus know this? And I'm like, I've just been watching you. And I think it helps to create something that I feel like is lost. And I'm not doing it to like get a one up on someone and leverage or whatever. I just really think I want to give, I want to support somebody, and I want them to feel seen in something that they're not really showing the world.
Yeah.
And I think that creates a lot of trust. And at some point, if I did need to leverage that person, just be like, hey, I need your support, it'd be probably an easier conversation as opposed to like, please pray to God, like, let me get your help.
Absolutely. There's 4 things that I end up teaching in workshops or with all the leaders that I work with, which is PPPS. What's your purpose as a leader? Are you present? So the things we're talking about, when you're talking to those people, are you actually present? You've talked to people and they're scrolling and they go, yeah. You have no idea what I said. If I ask you to repeat what I was saying, you're here, but you're not present. And then what is your presence? So if you walk in and you're disheveled and you haven't had a shave, you haven't done your hair, or you're wearing your clothes, so you're not giving a presence that you're there, you're organized, you're a leader, you're a part of it. So right back to the start of the conversation, are you walking the walk? Are you look like leadership is situational specific. Mm-hmm. Every meeting you go into, every situation you have is a new situation. A lot of people say, oh, we've been here a million times. No, you haven't. You've been in similar situations and you've got information up here and experience around that you can draw on. But this is a new situation. The conditions will always be something different. So understanding your purpose as a leader, are you present, what your presence is, and understanding every situation is different. Leadership is situational specific, really starts to change your dynamic. So if you've had a poor conversation with your partner, for instance, or between both of you on the way to work, if you walk in a bad mood because of the conversation you've had in the car on the way to work, that's no one else's problem. And if you walk in with that angry face and the boss is angry again, people become fearful of, I just stay out of his way, or I don't want to be the first to get it because they're going to give it to me because they've got to get rid of their anger. You've got to really set yourself when you walk in the building or walk into the next meeting to say, this is situational specific, this is new. What happened 5 minutes ago is not this group of people's problem.
Yeah.
I've got to be present here. Hit the pause button, the big breaths, and go right in it. And that's a real big challenge of senior leadership and yourselves as the leaders of your organisation. It's each time situational specific, and while it gets frustrating sometimes, if you had 2 or 3 in a row, things aren't going well. But you might take it out on the wrong person on the next time that's going to go in the back for you, and they go, wow, what a a-hole. That person. Yeah. So you've really got to understand yourself. And that's what, getting back to the values, beliefs, and understanding hitting the pause button and challenging conversations. It's really complex leadership. So
it is.
That's why I have this.
That's why you got a PhD in this, and we trust you.
Too many rabbit holes we can go down.
It's crazy. But Marcos, we are over an hour. Do you have maybe a last question, and maybe we can close it out?
Oh man, let's see if I can.
Sorry, I've been talking too much.
No. This is great. I mean, this is what we've been striving to get to early on, and it makes the time fly, which is great for us. But also, like, man, did we
just hit the nail like a little bit,
Yeah. Did we hit? I mean, I feel like beliefs and values of proven leaders, right? That's what you examine.
Well, I think if you want to overarching, what's really important for leadership, and leadership excellence is what I'm looking at. And I'm really pulling apart. I'm doing a peer-reviewed article that's coming out in a while. So there's something coming forward. And we talk too much specifically on leadership styles, being an authentic leader, being a steward leader, using these buzzwords. But actually, leadership is not about being one style or another. It is that situational specific where sometimes you've got to be autocratic and dictatorial. So you can say, no, you've got to take control. This is what we're going to do, and I need you to do this, and I need you to do this, and I need you to do this, and I need it now. Because it needs that. If you're in the military, for instance, or senior corporate, something's really critical, you've got to take that, hey, enough, we've got to do this. However, when the family aspect comes in or there's issues, you've got to dial it down and be supportive and caring and understanding and empathy. So saying be an authentic leader, what if you're a narcissistic prick and your values are terrible? So if you're authentic to yourself, it's not going to be good. And you can't be a servant leader. Because if you're a servant, you're just acquiescing to poor behavior the whole time. So the overarching thing is understanding your values, they're your radar, your beliefs, and they'll form your behaviors. But then leadership is encompassing all of those things. So sometimes autocratic, dictatorial, sympathetic, tolerant, caring, understanding, emotional intelligence is super important. So don't limit yourself to a style. Keep learning and growing through every situation. Introspect is all the time. It's really good to get a lessons learned, and don't look at situations that I regret who I was then or I regret this. You can't change it. It's who was I then? How did I handle that situation in that time? What can I take out of it, and how can I grow and keep improving?
So leaders are growth minded.
Have to be. And every time you've done something major, I really, really push hard on lessons learned. So once you finish a project, you can do two things. If you've done, just say you two have done a workshop or it could be a CrossFit thing you put together for 50 people, you do a hot wash straight afterwards. It's a 2-minute conversation, 2 questions. What did we do well? What could we do better? It's not what did we do bad, what could we do? And you just get immediate feedback. 3 days later, unpack it, do a lessons learned. So really pull apart and you're ongoing learning. And you do that all the time. And you just become better and better and better and better. And be open to feedback, whether you like it. Some opinions are just that. They're opinions, but get people that you trust. Keep learning, keep growing. The more I know I don't know.
Dunning-Kruger effect right there, baby.
What did you do well, and what do you need to do better, right? Or what
did we do well, and what could we do better next time?
What can we do better?
You don't want to really pick on yourself, but the hot wash, immediately when you finish, you could go, damn, we should have done this, or we forgot to do that, or we could have set this up better. This ran really, I was surprised how well that ran. That was so, let's do that again. But we thought this would work. Actually, if we'd set this up earlier, or if we'd done this better, or if we'd put that equipment over there, it would have transitioned a lot faster. So next time, let's do it there. That's it. And then you can have a deeper. Just 2 really quick questions, but it's up there straight away because you've got the vision and just experienced it, and you'll get really good, quick information. If you do that every single time, you'll just keep rocking and rolling, improving really quickly.
Well, I'm going to apply that tomorrow after I give my little nutrition talk to the gym that I'm going into, ironically, at a CrossFit setting. So
exactly. Did you set it up well? Did you have the products that you wanted to talk about? Were they accessible? Could you have little drinks and things ready to go at the time instead of mixing them up? So you're having not to pay, who knows what, but you'll pick out a couple of things, go, damn it, next time we're going to did this really, really well. Surprised that I planned for it, but that went better than expected. And next time, if we just tweak this, it'll really improve.
The iterative process, Seamus, the thing you're always talking about, man. I think that's a great way to end this.
Fantastic.
Dr. Taylor, thank you so much for your time. And
it was an honor.
I mean, this is fantastic. I think obviously we talked a lot about a broad scope of things in terms of just like leadership, but like leaving with these nuggets in the last 20 minutes, I think is great and applicable, right? Like you just said, the PPPS, right? And then those 2 questions after you've done something in that state and helping you improve. I think like that's something I can immediately take away from this. And the same with everybody else. There's our TLDL. Too long, didn't listen, right? If there's anything you guys got from this, those things are great. Yeah, Seamus, you want to take us out, man?
Yeah, man. Guys, all of Dr. Damien Taylor's information is going to be in the description below. Make sure you do give him like and a follow, and also, really make sure you tune into what's happening here, because we all are leaders at one point. If you believe you aren't a leader, that in itself needs to be broken, because you are leading in your actions, in your words, and what you're trying to do. So make sure you step up in those categories and be flexible in that leadership like Dr. Damien Taylor is talking about, and check out some of the cool things he's doing, and we'll make sure all those things are on the show notes, guys. Thank you, Dr. Damien Taylor. We'll see you guys next time.
It's a pleasure. Loved it. Thanks for having me.